Okay. Now we're recording. So I'm gonna, there you go. So cool, girl. Well, I am super pumped to see you because I get to pick your brain and ask you some questions.
Yeah, I'm excited. Let's see. Let's put my knowledge to the test right now.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. So these are a couple easy, well, not easy questions, simple questions that I've never really known the answer for because I've only done like CrossFit or classes or whatever. I've never actually, besides like the 8-week basic strength training program that's been, Christy wrote forever ago, I've never completed an 8-week strength program. So I'm wondering, like, if you're for the strength programs that you've written, basic, intermediate, advanced strength training that you've written for Fitme, with the setup that you've written, what is like the normal or sufficient amount of time between like sets or movements that I should be taking a break? Explain like that to me.
Yeah, that's a great question. So for the basic, I really made that one with the idea that this is for the person who only has a short amount of time to get a workout in, or they want to break that workout into movement snacks throughout their day. So I structured those workouts so that there's very little rest time if you're trying to get it done within 15-20 minutes. And then if you're spreading it out throughout your day because you're just trying to move a little bit more instead of just being sedentary all day, then of course you're going to be resting hours at a time, right? Between 10 push-ups there, 10 squats here. So that would be for the basic program. Once we get into intermediate and the advanced, then we're really starting to focus a little bit more on strength, having progressive overload. You're adding weights week to week. And that's where you want to start to rest a little bit more in between your sets. So if we're working on hypertrophy and you're working really hard, it's going to be anywhere from 90 seconds to 2 minutes. And then if maybe your focus is a little bit more on endurance and cardio, then you're going to have a shorter amount of rest on that.
So when you talk about progressive overload, what do you mean?
Progressive overload basically means that week to week, you are making that movement or that exercise a little bit harder. I'm mostly focusing on the weights that we're using. So week to week, you are adding, maybe depending on the movement, you're adding 5 pounds, you're adding 10 pounds. If it's something with your arms, maybe it's only 2 pounds, but that's okay.
That
If
2
you
pounds
don't,
feels like a lot with your
yeah, it
arms.
can be sometimes. If you're doing lateral raises, just adding half a pound, all of a sudden your shoulders can't keep it up. So, but it's all with the intention that you are challenging yourself, and at the end of the workout, you want to make sure that you at the end of the workout, you want to feel like you created enough of a stimulus with the weight that you used to have an effect, so that next time when you revisit that, you do feel stronger. And all of the workouts also, the first week is kind of like your baseline week. You want to take it easy. You want to probably use the lightest weight that you can. And then the following weeks is where you're adding weight. And if you're not able to add weight, then maybe you're adding a couple of more reps as well. So that's another part of the program in the intermediate and advanced, that I give you rep ranges. So it can be anywhere from like 6 to 8 reps, or maybe 8 to 10, or maybe on some of the movements, you'll see 10 to 12 reps. So if you can do the minimum of 10, that's great. But I also want to try to get you to push to 12. And then once you realize that you are able to complete all 12 easily with that weight, that's kind of a note for you of like, okay, next week I can go up more because I can add a couple more pounds, but maybe I'll only be able to complete the 10 reps.
Okay. So it sounds like you're saying there's a couple ways that you can modify something. You can modify it by adding repetitions at the same weight if it's too big of a weight jump for you with the equipment that you have,
Mhm.
or you can add weight and keep the same amount of reps, or potentially maybe even drop a couple reps if you're adding weight. What's your thought on that?
Um, yeah, you could drop a couple of reps. Ideally, you're still staying within the rep range that I programmed.
Okay.
Um, because the main focus for our clients that like when I created this program is, I mean, we all want to lose weight, we all want to put on muscle.
Yeah.
So the programs are a little bit more hypertrophy focused, where we're trying to add as much muscle as possible to our body so that we can then increase our metabolic rate, because muscle is a huge calorie burner. So the more muscle we have on our bodies, the more calories we're going to burn. So that was my intention with this. There are a couple of strength movements in the advanced portion just for some fun, like some heavy deadlifts, heavy back squat. But the main focus is all putting on muscle. So they're going to be in the higher rep ranges for sure.
Okay. And when you say hypertrophy, you mean making your muscle bigger, like
Yeah.
building muscle on top of muscle.
Yes.
Like, gotcha. Like getting swole.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, cool. So, okay, that's another thing that I am guilty of in the past as well. Now I have a different mindset around it, but I remember initially when I started like lifting weights, specifically in CrossFit, because once again, that's kind of my background. I was worried about getting like bulky. And now even saying that out loud, I want to punch myself in the face. But that was like something I was concerned about because I didn't have a good understanding about that. So can you explain why strength training, number one, why it's so necessary for us as women? And number two, what are the actual risks of quote unquote getting bulky? Like, can you kind of address that sentiment or concern that some people may have?
Well, one, I think I'm not sure if there's risks to getting bulky, but I would say that there is this mindset when we first start lifting weights of like, oh, I don't want to get bulky. I don't want to look like a man. I don't want to all of these things. But in reality, it's so hard for us to put on muscle. It's so hard to get bulky. It's so hard.
Yeah.
And then eventually, once you figure out how hard it is, you're like working towards it, you're like, man, I want to get bulky. I want to put on muscle.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot harder than people think. It requires a lot of consistency in the gym, eating tons of an adequate amount of protein. So I feel like that's probably the least of your worries as we're training in the gym, is getting bulky. As women, we don't put on muscle as well or as quickly as men do. And as we start to age, there's just so many more benefits that we get from weight training. It's not just putting on muscle, but also increasing our bone density, reducing the risk of osteoporosis as we get older. And it's really just having more muscle mass on your body has shown to improve the quality of life as you age. Muscle as we age muscle is the same way that it burns a lot of calories for us. Muscle will be the first thing that your body wants to lose, to get rid of, because it's so hard to maintain. So if we start being sedentary, if we start losing our nutrition, then the muscle is going to be one of the first things to go. And that's why it's one of those things where it's really hard to maintain and keep up with, but it's just so important.
Now that's interesting because I know when I do the metabolism reviews with people, a statistic that really sticks out to me is for every decade after the age of 30, women lose 3 to 8% of our muscle mass.
Yeah.
Like that's insane. That's a huge percentage. And I think it's like after 40, without strength training, we lose 3 to 8% of our muscle mass. And without strength training after 40, we lose 1% of our bone density, and I mean, that's like a really big freaking deal. I have osteoporosis in my family. So it's, It's interesting because I went and got a DEXA scan like a few years ago. And, my mom has osteoporosis. My grandmother had it really bad. Like she had kyphosis, the like hump right there. And that's like something that I've always been worried about. So I went and got this DEXA scan, and it was so cool because the only difference between me and my mom and me and my grandma is strength training, like that's the major difference. They both ate pretty healthy, and my mom eats healthy and she works out a little bit. But when I went in and got the DEXA, it like my bone density was off the charts. And it's absolutely because I was even deficient in vitamin D, like severely deficient for quite a while, actually. So it was like, I credit strength training. And I mean, the science shows that strength training is the reason that my bone density, like I wasn't in danger, of like osteoporosis at that time. So I don't know. I think it's huge. It is huge. And I think it's every time I turn around, the answer for women is strength training, like, perimenopause through menopause, like how to decrease your symptoms, how to continue to make gains, both in the gym and your like physical appearance, like how to lose weight or lean out is always strength training.
Yes.
It's,
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. I'm so that you were able to have such good results and improve your bone density and your vitamin D levels a lot. Sorry, excuse me.
Yeah.
A lot of
How are
the
you feeling, by the way?
um I was great this weekend, and then all of a sudden it's back. Like sore
Ugh.
question. I don't know.
Ugh. Sorry, I didn't mean to, mess with your flow.
No
You
worries.
were saying
Yeah.
something.
I think a lot of times we have this genetic component that we have in the back of our mind, and that's like, oh, it's my family history, or it's just genetics. And we kind of accept that as like, that's what it's going to be. And I can't do
Mhm.
anything about it. But our
Mhm.
environment and what we choose to do around that can negate your genetics.
Yeah.
Um, so being willing to take ownership over that and try to change it and not accept like, oh, this is just the cards I've been dealt, is huge.
Well, it's controllable versus uncontrollable,
Mhm.
there is so much out of our control that I think if we can grasp on to the very few things that we can control, like nutrition and moving our bodies and adding in strength training, I think that we're just so much better off, both mentally and physically, and that actually leads me to another question. So this is something that, I mean, I think I know the answer. I know the answer, but I hear from people and it continues to be asked. So enough preface. Here's the question. For weight loss, what gives you the biggest bang for your buck? For women, like I say women over 35, because that's our clientele, 99%. For women over 35, which gives you the biggest bang for your buck on a weight loss journey? Cardio or strength training?
Strength training.
Mm-hmm.
And strength.
Why?
I think I'm gonna kind of go back to some of the points I already hit, but
Okay.
it's mostly because cardio in the moment, it may seem like you're burning more calories
Mhm.
for that 30 minutes, hour that you're doing it, but after that, it's done. Strength training, you're burning some calories, less calories than you would if you're doing cardio, but you're putting on muscle, which is gonna help you burn more calories 24 hours of the day.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's where we want to get to. I think a lot of the time we think about that person of like, oh, they get to eat whatever they want. And
Mhm.
a lot of the times it's because they are strength training. It's because they have a certain amount of muscle on their body that allows them to eat a little bit more. So I'm always, I think the science too, whether it's just my opinion, but along with the science, you're going to be, if you're able to put on the muscle, burn calories during, but then also burn calories 24 hours of the day while you're sleeping, why not?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. And I know there's still, I mean, cardio has a million benefits, but I know that like, and so I think it definitely has to be part of your plan. but it can look very different than what I remember doing cardio when the first time I walked into a gym, a Gold's Gym, right? And hopped on that weird ski thing. I don't even know what it's called, but you just look like and you're just doing that. And I mean, it's cool. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't mean to make fun of it. There is a place for that. But I think like I didn't really, well, for a variety of reasons, but I didn't feel that I got like that much from doing that or getting on the treadmill or doing an elliptical, which funnily enough, ellipticals are really stinking hard and like never stuck to it. But I guess my point is, I think that what we've learned so much that in addition to like the cardio aspect, that I mean, there has to be strength training. And in fact, it seems that the science is now showing that more strength training than cardio, especially for perimenopausal women, is the way to go to see changes in our body and like lose weight or, you know, change our body composition.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think cardio kind of gives off like it makes you feel like you're doing a lot in the moment. And it's not to say that you're not doing hard work, but it maybe it just feels like you're doing more in that moment versus if you were to do a strength training session. So you get, maybe you're sweating more, you're out of breath more. So
Mhm.
on your watch, it'll say you burned more calories, right?
Yeah.
But in the long run, it's the strength training that's really going to make the biggest difference in the way that you look, the way that your metabolism is working, and just your lifelong health.
Well, then that's interesting too, because I've done some strength workouts that I didn't sweat.
Yeah.
Like, does that mean that I wasn't making gains? Or tell me about like, it kind of freaked me out at first, like, because that was like, I'm used to, you know, crushing myself in workouts and I'm not doing that anymore. I'm still seeing changes, but do you have to like drip sweat in order to get a good workout?
No, not always. I think it's good from time to time to push yourself and have that,
Mhm.
but a good workout isn't determined by the amount that you sweat. It's not determined by how sore you are the next day. Um, there's just so many other factors, and that's just
Yeah.
not the way that muscle growth works either. A
Yeah.
lot of the time it's not necessarily how you feel in the gym, it's how you recover afterwards as well. So yeah.
So tell me more about that. Like specifically, like say I have a good workout. I haven't been strength training either ever or it's been a while. So I don't have a strength training routine in place. And I start the basic strength program, the body weight or the intermediate with like light equipment or whatever. I do a workout and I'm okay that day. The next day, I'm pretty sore. It's not a workout day, it's a recovery day. What are like the top two things that I could do that day in order to recover enough to be able to work out again sooner? Like, what would you recommend for top two recovery things?
Hydrating and
Okay.
moving. So a lot of the time we don't want to move because we're sore and we're like, ah, it hurts. But the more movement that you can do, and I'm not saying go do a workout, I'm saying go for a walk, maybe get on a bike, do like some really light movement in the legs if that's where you're sore, stretching, anything that gets blood flow going through there, because blood flow is what is going to take all of the I'm forgetting of like the sciencey terms right now, but all of the waste and like that feeling is what's going to help move it through quickly through your body,
Okay.
and hydrating. So, and preferably something with electrolytes.
Ah, okay. So moving, hydrating, tossing in some electrolytes, you know, potentially, but the moving and hydrating are like the top two things.
Mhm.
Okay. So now moving, is that like walking or stretching or both, or just attempting to be intentional with our movement, not sit still for long periods of time if possible?
Yeah, I think just being intentional. It doesn't have to be stretching. It doesn't have to be a walk, but just something to get the blood flow moving. And that feels good to you in that moment. So maybe it's getting on a foam roller, going out for a walk, some intentional movement so that you're not just sitting all day, because then that's just going to make the soreness last longer.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Been there. Okay. Okay. Well, I think you've answered my questions for today, and I really appreciate you taking your time. What I'd like to do, moving forward, I think that we can kind of delve into some of these topics, and then, like we were talking about before, like letting folks know, that every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, this is available to them. And like, hey, we are going to talk pre and post workout nutrition at 4 o'clock on Wednesday, or we are going to talk recovery at 4 o'clock on Wednesday. I think that'll be really helpful, because I know that I've been strength training consistently for like 6 or so years at this point. I forgot how old I am, maybe 7 years at this point. And I've learned a lot in those 7 years, but it's 7 years. I mean, that's, I've asked a lot of questions and I've done a lot of reps in that time. So I think it'd be really helpful for us to share some of this stuff, in an organized way. So I'm really excited. Thank you so much for taking your time today. And we'll kind of talk together, and you can tell me what you want to talk about next Wednesday.
Okay, yeah, we'll get together and brainstorm some topics, and then we can have them ready to go.
Yeah, and I guess if any clients have any topics or questions that they want to delve into, they can hit you up and, put that on your radar.
Yeah, absolutely. I have
Okay.
some coming up this weekend, so maybe I'll ask and see what they're interested in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Ask them. I mean, Facebook polls are always fun,
True.
Definitely. So awesome, Maritza. Thank you so much. It was good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. It was great talking. All right.
All right, girl. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.